So a lot of people focus on this cash flow part that's there, but I'm focusing on what I call the net worth part. So most people focus on the numerator, I'm focusing on the denominator. So how can you make 100 grand and turn that into 200 grand? How can you turn 200 into 400, 400 into 600, 800, so on, so on, and so on. And that's there. I've called that the velocity of money. And that's what we're talking about here, is the velocity of money. Money by itself only knows how to do one thing, and that's compound.
You are listening to the Property Developer Podcast, your home for tips, ideas and inspiration to help take your developing to the next level. Now here's your host, Justin Getty.
Hello and welcome to episode 22 of the Property Developer Podcast. It's great to have you with me. I trust you are doing well. Given the short period since the last show, I don't really have any project updates for you. So I thought we would get straight into part 2 of my conversation with property developer Dave Bradley. If you haven't heard part 1, make sure you go back to episode 21 and take a listen, because Dave shares some absolute golden advice on how to grow your developing business. And in this part, we dig deeper to unearth even more bullion about how you can take your business to the next level. Dave and I talk about the questions you need to ask if you want to scale your business, what holds people back from taking the next step, and his one tip for developers who aspire to greatness. So get your pen and paper out and get ready to take some notes. We pick up where we left off, with Dave sharing where he plans on taking his developing business. All right, so where do you see Dave Bradley taking his business then? If the plan is to kind of reduce your time.
So where do I see myself taking the business? I zig and zag between scaling it up and scaling it down. Ultimately, though, you can't scale it down, because then what are you going to do? So I'm still relatively young. I still reckon I'm pretty good at this, and I still actually enjoy doing this. So you scale it up. It's a case of how far you scale up and to what extent you scale it up. And so there's no point just scaling up for the sake of scaling up. There's more of a controlled scaling up. So I'm happy to work with people and try and help them do that. I actually get a lot out of helping people do developments and better themselves. I was with a lady last week. That sounds terrible, doesn't it?
So we'll cut that out so your wife doesn't hear it.
I was with a designer last week who happened to be... I was helping someone out last week. It's a completely unrelated field, and it come to me via a friend and said, "Can you help me in my business?" And anyway, was doing something and said, "What do you think?" And I said, "What you described to me sounds absolutely brilliant." I said, "But tell me about which is what you wanted to hear about, my thoughts as a developer. Tell me about the commercialities behind it." And I worked out real quickly she was going to drop about $250,000. And she said, "What do you think?" And I said, "That sounds like financial suicide. What you're contemplating." She goes, "What would you do?" And I said, "Anything but what you're doing right now." I said, "Do you mean to tell me you're going to write a check out for like a large sum of money?" She says, "Yeah." I said, "Well, I'd do anything to receive the large sum of money before I wrote it out. Like, why are you taking the punt on this when you so worked out who the clients were and so forth?" I caught up with her on Friday, and her exposure has gone from $250,000 to she's worked out how to get to $100,000 the exposure, and she's worked out how to get that $100,000 covered by pre-sales. Now she's talking about a certain type of design thing that she's working on, which is beyond the scope of what we're talking about right now. And then she's also made it into an earn where she's going to get paid an annuity per click or per engagement and kind or something like that, where she's helping the people out, and she's probably going to earn a passive income of probably $50,000 a year. That to me was tremendously satisfying, that you've just given a person a tweak to go, no, you're on your way. I remember seeing through, was it one of the movies, The Firm, Tom Cruise? And I remember this is like 25 years ago, I don't know how long ago now, and I remember, I've been on a first date with a girl at this movie, and Tom Cruise, as you remember the movie, he starts off in the first, still with the credits are coming on, he graduates from college and gets a $150,000 a year salary. I thought that was the end of the movie. I was happy to leave at that point. I thought it was a nice feel-good movie, and off he goes. I didn't realise there was a subplot behind it about corruption and whatever else that happened. So I actually get a bit out of helping people better themselves, and I know a little bit about this, and I'm okay at running businesses and helping people run businesses, so I actually enjoy that part of it. I'm currently working with a number of people, and so I'm a businessman. That's what I do. And my parents have been critical of that in the past. Of Dave, you think of every problem as a business solution. I went, well, that's how I solve things, is in a business-like, methodical way. So, for people who are listening to this, I guess I'm available, albeit I don't advertise the fact I'm available. I let people come and find me, and I realise this is maybe where we're going down this road at the moment. So I currently do this with people, and I do this via a number of ways of helping people. So let's go back a step. Back when I was in former careers and I was on stage and I was with Steve and so forth, the market was all about educating people, and you're trying to educate people to do stuff. And the shortcoming is that people ultimately they didn't want to get educated; they just want to get rich. There was a disconnect between what you were giving people and what they actually wanted. And one of my frustrations right now is that there is still that disconnect where there are educators who are saying, buy my course or listen to my readings or whatever, going, if you read this and learn it, you will become rich if you employ it. And people are going, I haven't got the time for it, buddy. I just know I need to do something. So my typical people that I come across, or a typical person I come across, is a person who goes, I'm like you were 20 years ago. I'm in a job I don't like, or I don't see much future in. I don't want to do this for the next 50 years. I've got a family, or I'm going to have a family, and I want to get myself ahead financially, and I know I've got to do something. Help is the case. I know that I'm not a developer. I know that I'm not a full-time. I know I have my shortcomings, but I do have this, whether it's a small portion of money or it's the case. So over the time, over the last little while, what I've done is I've operated two different systems, if you like, or two different programs to try and help people. The first one is where I take people on as being investors. Typically, some tough numbers. If a person comes to me with $20,000, it's probably unlikely I can help them do anything. The sums of money we're talking about is such that it's not going to get you into a deal that I'm doing right now as an investor. So the deals that I'm doing with investors right now, typically you will need anywhere between $400,000 to $500,000 minimum investment. Typically, I want you to have that as surplus cash rather than you're going to sell a family home, you're going to be living on a bus stop to support that, because that's not what I want at all. Typically, your income, it might be a high-paying job that you're middle management, and you're going, I can't throw this away to do this, but I know I need to do something. You might actually have a business, and this is the surplus cash that you've generated from that business. And I'll say we'll set up a syndicate as such. I will typically become a syndicate member as well. The syndicate members might be anywhere from 2, 3, 4, 5. Keep them smallish syndicates. I'll actually let you meet the other people, because I think it's important if we're in this together, you know what's going on. I will manage the projects, and I will take a project from start all the way till divvying up the paychecks. There you go. There's your check, there's your capital back, and there's your return on your capital. That's the first system that I operate. The second one is that of I call it a mentor program. This, I guess, is for people who want to be more active and more hands-on. The people I've worked with have achieved actually really great things on this. We structure it in remuneration-wise that works for both parties. It's not a free service.
I wouldn't have thought an accountant would be giving, or a former accountant would be providing free services.
It's interesting, Justin, because I'd love to give people a free service, but I said it's free. Then people go going, it's free. I definitely want it then. And so what you find is that people don't value it because it's free.
That's exactly what happens.
And it's frustrating. I remember back in the seminar days, being on stage with Stephen, if we used to have the option, I think, or the offer, if people could leave, I think up to their morning tea, and then get their money back, or wouldn't have to pay for it. And you knew the market was at a certain point when people were coming in and they go, excuse me, Dave? Oh, yes, mate. What time can I stay till and still get my money back? You go, I think you've got the wrong attitude to start with, to be honest. But hey, it's not my. Why don't you just leave now, mate? Like, honestly, you sound like you're not really going through. You're not really invested in this. But hey, that's my opinion. But that's what it is. So, unfortunately, you sort of have to charge people to make sure that the people actually value it. And to be fair, so I value it because I want to know that you're serious. Because the people I've worked with, I'll give you an example. So there are two parties I'm currently working with. This is exclusive. I don't market. This is an exclusive thing where people have knocked on my door and said, Dave, please help. Sure, I'm happy to listen to something. So the deal at the moment is they'll pay me a fee per month or a fee per year to essentially be there as the phone a friend is probably the way to do it. The beauty about being a mentor is that you get to ask more questions than you answer. And you get to challenge people. And so what it's come down to is so there's a fee per month, and there's also a share of your profit. I'm going to get paid out of what you do. So the theory being, if you earn $1 million for the year based on what I've given you the kick up the pants to do, then I'm sharing in that because you wouldn't have made it except for me. And if you're the type of person who goes, no, I'm not doing that, then don't worry about it. You don't need me either. Then if you're self-motivating enough to do it without my involvement, then save us both the time. Save me the time. Just go and do it. Don't need to come and sit in my office and ask you what day of the week it is. Just go and go crazy. But if you don't need that, then these are the terms. So how's it working out for the two guys in the program at the moment? They're both about at the end of the second year. They're about 2 years in. One of them has banked their first profit check in that program of it's about $500,000, and the second one, he's about to finish. He's got 2 projects going concurrently, and he'll probably walk away with about $1 million. So whatever they're paying, and they pay me a percentage of that, or out of that profit, they'll pay me something out of that. I think my take on that is I think they're pretty happy with how things are going, because I'm not taking the majority. They're taking the majority of them. I'm taking a little cut along the way of doing that. I think that you'd say they're pretty happy, not only with the financial outcome, but as far as what they've learnt in order to get them to that. So I'm happy to work with people who want to work with. Now the downside, you've had a nice day for an hour, is I've got a bad streak to me because I can't tolerate dickheads. I have a very low threshold. I just can't tolerate fools. So if you come in my office and you waste my time, I'll tell you that you're wasting my time. Now some people, this is when I have my bad days, if you like, when you go, well, why would I want to scale this thing up? Because why would I put myself out there? The more people that I meet, the more chances are that you're actually going to meet people who are going to waste your time. Can't you just tell me everything that you know right now? Well, I don't know what you know already, or it's just I could tell you everything, but I could tell you the suburb I'm buying in right now. I could give you the house I've just bought last week. But I can guarantee you that most people won't make a profit out of it because they'll have some shortcoming, which is why I'm in the situation in the first place. So it becomes a frustrating exercise. And all I do, much to some people around me discontent, is I just call people on it and say, what you just did was stupid and I don't like it. And you're wasting my time and you're wasting your own time. But we seem to operate in a society whereby, we don't like to upset people, or, it's this mark where, it's okay, or it'll be all right in the end, or everyone will get a medal, I don't know, whatever type of stuff. And I just disagree with it. And so, I chat to my buddies, we talk about becoming grumpy old men, about going, well, we get to a certain age and you've had certain experiences. I actually reckon it's okay to call people and go, I reckon that's wrong. So I respect your right to do stuff, but if you want to do stuff with me, I'm also open to change as well, but this is my rules for doing stuff, is how I go.
So when people come to you for mentoring or consulting, or whatever you want to describe it as, are there some, and I presume they want to do that because they want to take their business to the next level, are there some sort of fundamental blocks that you would look to put in place for their business to enable them to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. The first question I'd ask you, and I ask you the people listening to this right now, is do you have a clear direction of where it is that you want to be by a certain time frame? And so, there you go, we use you as an example. You happy to be a guinea pig, a little fairy rodent for a second?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, happy to have a live consult.
So, where do you want to be in 12 months' time? Or do you have a vision of where you want to be in 12 months' time? Do you have a goal for 12 months' time?
Yes, in 12 months'
goal
time.
Or 2 years, or
yep.
Yeah, okay. You don't have to tell me or the viewers what that is. And so, have you written that down?
Well, I actually just recently sat down and mapped out a 10-year plan for where I'd like to get to.
Yeah. So the first thing we do is work out where you want to be, because there's no point me trying to take you anywhere unless you want to actually know where you want to be. Because if you don't tell me where you want to take, we want me to help you to take you, there's a very small chance we actually may end up at the right place. We may do, but let's identify what it is that we actually want to get to. Now, for people playing along at home, most people say, I want to do my first development, I want to make 100,000. But there's some broad brush comments that get made, and they're all fine. I'm not going to say they're wrong comments, because when you're getting started, they're all, I just want to have done one, I might have made some money, I want to be making two, or it might be you've done a couple, you actually want to be able to do multiple at the one time. So then you'll go through and say, well, what needs to happen to make that happen? So, I was using you, for example. You said, I want to do two at once. So I'm going, well, clearly you can't keep doing 20 at a time. You need to do 2 10s. So what areas need to, there's a discussion around that. So longer term, you start talking about finance and capital, deal location. What type of deals you want to do? Do you have any idea about the type of deals you want to do? Now, if you want to sign up to be a mentor, all you want me to do is feed you deals, that's not what I do either. So I believe you can find a deal any day of the week. You just got to be in the right frame of mind and put yourself in the right circle to be able to get deals sent to you every day of the week so that you know what it is that you're actually looking for. Do you know what type of deal you actually want to find? Now, if you just say, I just want to find a deal with profit in it, then they want to deal with profit in it. But 20 units in Mooralbark is different to a land subdivision, is different to townhouse. They're just different markets. They've all got their own profits. So I'm a big believer in the more you know exactly what it is that you want, the more chance you'll actually have in finding that. If you've got no idea what it is that you want, then there's a good chance that's exactly what you'll find. Funny like that.
And so is that with people, so when you talk about people knowing what they want, is that around, say, a turnover or a profit per year, or it's up to them to determine that more so?
I come back to, I'll try and oversimplify it for people listening, and for myself too, probably, on that basis. Most people I've ever met in the seminar land and beyond have always wanted to have a certain amount of income per year. That's their passive income, or there's there. So everyone's got a number that's there. I think Kerry Packer said that to the Australian Cricket Board once. Gentlemen, what's your number? Everyone's got a number. What's yours? And so most people working right now, or they've got a business, there's a number where they say, if someone got a cheque for that sum of money tomorrow, they'd walk away. They'd shut their doors and go, I don't care whether it's $100 million or 50. There's a number where people go, that would do me. Whether that's an income per year, per month, what have you, or it's just a straight out, this is the amount of money in your bank account. The first decision is to go, what's the number and what type of number? Are we talking about a per month, per week, per year income, or are we talking about an amount of money that's a net worth, if you like, or amount of money in the bank that's there? So most people I've ever met in seminar land have all wanted a passive income of $100 grand a year. There seems to be this number that $100 grand a year, if you got that from a rental stream, from an annuity or a royalty or something, that would make the world a happier place for most people. It seemed to be the case. I'm not casting any dispersions on whether that's right or wrong. That seemed to be a consistent theme over a large number of years, is $100,000. Now, if a person had $100,000 as their net wealth, $100,000 in the bank, and they wanted to get that, they would have to earn 100% on that money repeatedly. Now, which is basically $100,000 on $100,000 equals 100%. Now, my experience, I go, it's 100% return on their investments. It's doable. It's harder than if it was 10%, but it's not impossible to do. As to how good you'll go will depend on a whole bunch of factors with markets and your abilities during markets and how much time you give it and so on and so forth. If you still had the same income goal of $100,000 a year, instead of having $100,000, you had $200,000, then you don't need to make 100% anymore. You now only need to make 50%. It's about twice as easy as 100% in the mathematics that's there. So a lot of people focus on this cash flow part that's there, but I'm focusing on what I call the net worth part. So most people focus on the numerator. I'm focusing on the denominator. How can you make 100 grand? So how can you make 100 grand and turn that into 200 grand? How can you turn 200 into 400, 400 into 600, 800, so on, so on, and so on? And that's there. I've called that the velocity of money. And that's what we're talking about here, is the velocity of money. Money by itself only knows how to do one thing, and that's compound. It's we as people seem to get involved in the process and stuff it up. We have a propensity to want to spend it on stuff and junk and other things like that. Kids will do that to you in some ways when you're out with them on a weekend. So all we have to do is be custodians of money and let the money grow by itself. And so what I do when I work with people is to say, if you've got $100,000, let's work out how we can get to that 100, how we can maximise that return into 200 and 300 and so on. And at a point in time, if you've got whatever that is, let's call it $100 million. And then at that point in time, it doesn't matter what your return on investment is. You can, as long as it's not 100%, you're probably going to be okay. Life's pretty good. So I've dealt with some investors. I've currently got investors that I'm working with right now, and they started in one case with $650,000. He's currently up to $1.5 million. Is his net worth that he has invested that's there. And so people have just kept growing that pool and growing that pool and growing that pool. I have the ideal, in inverted commas, situation where they're going, you're not stopping, are you, Dave? We want you to keep going, because they know that what they're doing is actually making them money. And so when I talk about should I do this or should I not do this, there are people going, you actually should help people out here. And so yeah, it becomes commercially attractive for me to do so. I'll make no bones about that. but it also helps people. I know it changes people's lives, what I've been able to do and what I've managed to do. So as I look back, and I remember standing on Camberwell train station going, I hate going to work, and I'm going to wait for every train to go past until I get a seat on that train because I think I deserve a seat. So I'm going to be late to work because I want a seat because I just don't want to go to work today.
So is this the work when your name was on the front door, or
No, this is the work when I was working in an accounting practice in town, when you basically had 6 minute increments of your life where you sold your life in 6 minute increments. I went, no, I think I deserve more than this. For people listening to this, I think you deserve more than this because we've joked about a few things, but essentially, you get one go around the board. You get one go to do this, and so the decisions that you make. The decisions you make today, will be carried out tomorrow. I've just come off the season of coaching my son's under-9 soccer team, and I was acutely aware that everything I ever said to them, and everything I ever didn't say to them, and just observed or said or didn't say, was being observed by them and their parents. That was teaching them lessons. And so, it was a case of how do you want to teach these guys? That was there. So what I taught them right now will hopefully they'll feel the positive effects of that for years to come. Similarly in the property sense, that what is that you do right now, whether you do it with me or you do it with anybody else, decisions you make right now hopefully will affect you in a positive way tomorrow, next week, next year, and so on. And so most people don't get started in this business because of fear. It's not because of money at all, because money by itself is a concept. If you want to invest money in a program, you need some money. If you want to be a passive investor in one of my programs, you need some money to invest in that. It's just sort of what comes with the territory. But if you want to be entrepreneurial and you want to be the developer and the go-getter, you don't need money for that. If you think you need money for that, then that's a limitation that you have. There are enough people around who will back you with that and say, yeah, I like your vision, I'm prepared to back you for that. Now, that's my experience doing that, is people prepared to back you with that. Whether that becomes your experience, I guess that's the beauty of the journey, I suppose.
So it sounds like there's just a lot of, you challenge people on some of those preconceived ideas, limiting beliefs, I guess they would be.
Absolutely. Most of the problems that a person is striving to overcome is a problem that I've actually encountered myself. So all I'm doing is looking back down the road a few steps and saying, I've been there, I've already worn the path out for you, just follow it, it's fine.
So who do you admire then? Who's your inspiration for your property business or for your business in general?
I was really fortunate. When I started my accounting career, I worked for a firm that had some unbelievable clients. When I was 17, I met a client who was probably worth, $50 million, a property guy. His name was Maury. He passed away probably 7 or 8 years ago. And when I was about 22, 23, he gave me what I call the chat about, I guess he was like a rich dad in that sense. He was a down-to-earth, humble person who would just call a spade, and he would just want to know about you, the person, as well about his own business. Incredible man, and I would catch up for coffee with him, just talking about stuff. And the deals he did were just unbelievable, and he was just his feet firmly on the ground. As I say, unfortunately, he passed away 7 or 8 years ago. I still see his son. I still catch up with one of his sons now. That was at Maury's request before he died. He said, "Can you see my sons? Because I want them to hear from someone other than the old man who's doing stuff." So I become friends with his sons, and so we catch up there. So he was. There's a lot of things now, and I come across situations, and I would ask myself, what would Maury do? How would Maury deal with this? And we're talking about, there are times when you don't know necessarily what's the most popular decision, you do what's the right decision. And that can sometimes be the wrong decision for you, but it's the right decision for doing that, how you want to treat people. So you do leave a legacy behind. So as much as I'm commercially focused, the more developments that you do, there are more people who actually know about you, and there are more people that unfortunately in some cases want to take a shot at you and bring you down a peck or two. So not that you can be as white as driven snow or anything like that, but you can decide how you want to run the business and how you want to be seen by people. So by doing the right thing by people. So as I say, your word becomes your bond. So if you say I'm going to do something, then that is what I'm going to do, rather than trying to find some little clause in a contract to wheel your way to doing something. You do what's called the right thing. So I'll give you an example. If I'm building a house or a townhouse, the it's there, I try and assume that my parents are the buyers. What would I do is the right thing by these buyers, assuming it was my parents buying this property. And so, not that I'm just going to roll over and do stuff, but if we said we would do something, then we will do that. Whether we're talking about the air conditioning or the floor plan, whatever it was, we would do that. So it's the right thing by people.
So if you look forward 25 years, and we'll have your investors hopefully you're still involved doing projects, and you look back on your career, what is it you want to be known for?
Wow, 25 years. 25 years is a long time.
Yeah, well, you'll be, 65?
Tell my kids I'm 26. What do you know? Double. I'm 46, 25 years. Firstly, I hope I'm still alive. That's the first thing. 25 years is a heck of a long time to look ahead. 2 years is a heck of a long time to look ahead. I ask myself the question sometimes, rather than looking 25 years ahead, work 25 years back, or 5 years back, or 3 years back, and so we're talking about markets. But so it gets a bit scary in that sense. I think the first point of that is I say, I have enough money, I should just retire tomorrow. And people go, what would you do? I say, I'll probably just retire and just do the property thing. Oh, that's right, that's what I'm doing right now anyway. So I'm already doing what it is that I do. What I do, I don't consider as work. One of the reasons I got into this business, one of the reasons I stay in this business is because if you show me another business that hasn't been to the same degree of flexibility of time and hours, degree of leverage, not only of money but also expertise and other people's knowledge and wisdom, the amount of money that you can make by developing or getting where the market is your friend, is unbelievable. If there's another business that did exactly what it is, I would be there. If making swimming pools was it, I would be in the swimming pool business right now. There's a reason why I'm in this business it is right now. So back when I was working in town, there was it was probably one of the worst things the firm ever did. It was one of the best things they ever did for me, was that they got in a consultant, and he basically this has stuck with me because it's now like 20 odd years later. And he said, if you were to write down your obituary when you die, what would you want people to write about you? And people write down, great guy and all this sort of stuff. And he goes, all right, if you were to die tomorrow, what would they write about you tomorrow? Oh, he's a hard worker, good family, like all this sort of stuff. He said, so the point of his exercise was to work out, well, what you want is one thing and what you're doing is another thing, then when are you going to change? You're going to change in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. But the case of the point, I think, was you should start changing now. It was as good a time as any. So what it came to for me was one of the exercises, and part of this was to write down what do you want people to write in your obituary. And I know what I want people to write in their obituary. I want them to write, the world is a poorer place for Dave Bradley not being here because of all the people's lives he changed for the better whilst he was here. And whether that's in a property sense, it's in a coaching a soccer team sense, we're talking running marathon sense, anything that you do, whether you have an opportunity to meet someone, that you hopefully enrich someone in a certain way, that they would go, wow, I was better for the experience of meeting that guy.
And so we've looked forward, now looking backward. If you could go back in time and talk to your younger self and give them some advice, when would it be and what would that advice be?
Giving me advice, I could go back 20 years, I could go back 25 years, I could go back, this time last week, in that sense. My advice, and the reason I say that is because the advice is pretty similar the whole way through, is the worst case scenario is never as bad as it seems. The only regrets I've got in a property sense have never been anything I bought, it's always been stuff that I didn't buy. So whether I'm trying to bid for a property and I miss it by $1,000 or a building quote, whatever that, it was always something regret was always something I should have done, not something I did do. So I reckon I've had a bit of a crack over my investing / developing career, and my advice to a younger me was, I reckon you can go harder, son.
At what age?
As I say, 20, 25, 30, 35, yeah, you can always go harder.
Okay, good. And you're an accountant, or a previous accountant?
No, still qualified.
Oh,
Still pay my $600 a year to the Institute. It was so hard to get the qualification. I actually can't bring myself to give it back. I still pay them money, and I still go. I read them. They send a charter magazine out every month. And for people who are reading this who were chartered accountants, that's there. They've merged with the Institute of Chartered Accountants in New Zealand, and so there's a whole bunch of stuff that's happened in chartered accounting land, and I'm really critical of the fact that we seem to have said that merging with New Zealand Institute of Chartered Accountants seems to have been the number one thing that we seem to have achieved. So there's all these other things that they could have done, but we've now merged with New Zealand. So I read this magazine every month. I read that GST was going up, and I realised no, the New Zealand GST was going up. So every month I read this magazine, and I read it without fail to remind myself about what it could have been. And every month I cross myself and thank the Lord that I'm not an accountant anymore and a practicing accountant, because it passed me by.
And so do you still do your own tax returns?
No. No. I have an account. I'm really lucky. I sold my accounting practice to a really good friend of mine, a guy who became a really good friend of mine, a guy called Mark Unwin. And I think he was a bit concerned at the time when he bought me, what's this guy selling his practice for? We became really good friends. Mark, I would trust with my life in a sense, and I would, he does all my stuff. I've had a go at doing my own basses, but they generally end in tears at some stage. So I find it's easier just to let other people do it.
So my question was going to be around whether you think a developing business can be valued and sold.
Ooh. Well, they have been in the past. They have been. The question is, on what basis have they been developed and sold, or have they been sold? I think in a lot of cases they've been sold on the basis of a team of people that are there, as well as the book of work that's involved. So, like any business, if it's reliant on a person, it's hard to put a valuation behind that. But there's no reason, and if you see what some people have bought in the marketplace, there's no reason to suggest that what you've got is that. It's not my business moving forward. I'm assuming that it's not going to get sold for anything. But I think if you have a different perspective and you're setting up a business, then you should at least be setting up a system in place that you aren't the business, so that you give it every chance of being sold as a going concern.
Is that something you could do as a smaller developer, like a lot of us are one-man bands essentially?
I guess you could. The question will be: is the time and energies and efforts to invest in that? Is it really going to be worthwhile for doing that? And who is your target market? So I think if you are a townhouse developer, I would say, like theoretically, yes, it's going to be sold. Practically, no. I'm not going to buy your business off you unless you've got all these projects that you have under contract. Then I'm not buying your business. I'm buying your projects.
Yeah, that's right.
So I think you need a team of people. So you might become a larger land subdivision type organisation where there's a specific structure and a hierarchy and a management system in place, and that's what's being sold. And I think, to be fair, the businesses that have sold, the development businesses sold, are the ones that have had like multi-million-dollar pipelines of developments in place with a team of people that are actually empowered and trained and qualified to actually deliver those.
All right, a question about stock holding. Keep or sell?
I reckon I could make a lot of money by just covering bets on people who say, Dave, how many rental properties do you own? 0.
I was going to say 135. Is that 130?
0. Couple of reasons. That's the reason why. First of all, people go, really? I thought you had 130 properties. I said, yeah, I tried to trade those into a development business that... If you go and buy a piece of land for $2.5 million, you've sort of got to, if you wrote down a 10% deposit check, you need $250,000. Now, I wish I could just say, oh yeah, I just got a little top drawer of $250,000 checks that I just pull out and cash there. 250 grand is a lot of money. Like, let's make no bones about it. It's a lot of money. If you said I was going to give you 50 grand check because there was some magical bank or finance thing, that's 50 grand. Still a lot of money. Back in what I took, that was 1 year's worth of my life was 50 grand. So it was there. So what I found for me was that I could make, when I looked at it clinically and or cynically, whichever way you want to look at it, and if I was advising myself as the accountant, I went, so you're going to invest $250,000 into a rental property that's going to earn you whatever per year, 0 in cash flow, say, or whatever mechanism you're establishing it by, or you can put in that development and you can make 10, 20, 30, 40, whatever percent that you're going to make. Well, as the accountant, he goes, well, it's pretty clear. If you're looking at increasing your denominator number, as you spoke about earlier, that you're going to want to put it in the development every single time. Now, because it's an active investment versus a passive investment. So ultimately, when you retire, you'll end up with a rental portfolio. But I think, and I've had various goes at this because banks have asked me to and so forth, but you should keep some of this stuff, and I've kept it. And almost to my detriment when they've gone, you owe us $10 million. Okay, yeah, it's on rental properties. They're worth 15. Yeah, but you owe us 10. Yeah, but you told me to keep the 10. And so you've had this different policy at a bank. So from a pure finance perspective, you can make a better rate of return. It's a poor use of your capital. And your development business, I don't know if we really spoke about this, but most businesses are unfunded. Most developers are always looking for more capital. And so the times I've had a rental business and a development business, I've always gone, my rental business is capital intense and my development business needs capital. So I spent all this time trying to find capital. When there's all that money just sitting there, just by disposing of those assets, I could actually solve my capital problem. And the third way is, I actually reckon you require different sides of your brain to deal with them. So I had a situation with my rental agent when I had a dozen units, and she said she wanted to know whether like tenant to put something in the toilet. I don't know, whatever was the typical property manager tenant discussions, property manager landlord discussions. And she said, "Can we send a plumber around there for $50?" Yes. In the meantime, I'm dealing with finance for $1 million and a construction contract. And can we send them off $50? Did she just say 50? Of course, send someone around for $50. She goes, "Oh, Dave, you are the best landlord we've got. You just say yes." And I said, "Oh, why is that?" "Oh, Dave, you are the best landlord we've got." "Why is that?" "Oh, you just say yes to everything." Well, that dawned on me, and I went, "That's probably not a really good landlord." There's no test in my mind about whether it's a good use of $50 because the number is so small compared to the other numbers I've been dealing with over the course of that day. I went, "No, this isn't good. You have the wrong mentality right now in your life to be a residential landlord." So I went, "No." So I sold them all and invested in there. At a point in time, as I get closer to retirement and whatever that looks like, you will end up, there is your annuity and there is a cash flow will come from these things. But right now, I don't need to be a landlord.
Okay, that's good to know. So I'm guessing when people come to you for help to take their business to the next level, capital and finance is probably one of the key things that they want to cover. Do you have any advice for how you solve those problems?
It's not rob a bank.
Yeah.
It's not always the number one. People will come from different perspectives. One is capital and finance and the money part. Second one is I can't find a deal, or I don't know what type of deals I should do. And the third one is the fear of doing anything. So there's probably a few as the number ones, depending on where a person comes from. In relation to capital and finance, to me it's really, really simple. If you do a development and you need $1 million in what determines its total development cost, then someone or some ones are going to pay $1 million out for the land, for the builder, for the consultants, whatever is the case. The most obvious way you get money to start with is from the bank. It's called a first mortgage. That will typically lend you, let's say, $700,000 of that, 70%. Whether you go to one of the big four, the second tiers, private lenders, whatever, the banks will give you a sum of money. And they'll have certain conditions attached to that. You probably covered it in previous podcasts with pre-sales and virtual guarantees and all sorts of things that they have as their terms. The second part of that is someone's going to make up the shortfall. And typically that is you as the person with capital. And that's typically where they get to, is the person says, "Yeah, but I've only got 300. You go, "Well, what's the problem? There's 300, the bank's going to give me 7 and off you go." "Yeah, but how do I do a second one? Or how do a third one?" So the first part of that is just steady on. Let's get out of the first one before we worry about how you're going to take on the world. That's the first. Like if your role was that you were only going to do one and stop, and the second one then stop, and the third one then stop, it's okay. There's worse things that can happen if you were only going to make a certain amount of money per time. Alongside that is the notion that a person may need to keep working to keep telling the banks they can service that loan. And so a lot of people struggle. They go, "But I've seen the light on the other side. I can get out of work and I can make all this." And there's a disconnect there because they go, "Man, it's even harder now." There's a theory we used to have, or a saying we used to have, in order to get the banks to say yes, you need to take all the reasons away. Well, the bank says no. And so the bank, if you want to make the bank to do something they don't want to do, you're going to find it incredibly hard. So to make the bank do what they want to do, to answer their questions yes. When they ask a question, make sure that you're answering yes to that question. But so the bank's perspective, let's leave that to one side because their limitations. Typically, what I found, they'll lend it. First of all, they'll say, do you have a paycheck that we know that you can service this loan? In my experience, the second question they go, and if you don't, and this is the part they don't really tell you, if you don't, does the property service this loan by itself? And that's typically where they go, yeah, it does. Oh, you know what you're doing? Yes. Tick, 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 and so forth. Because I don't have a paycheck that can service an income of $3 million loan, for example, just so we're clear. But the projects do. So then it comes to the capital and the capital management part. So I'm fastidious on cash flow, about knowing exactly how much money's in the bank and when the money's coming in and when the money's going out. What I've discovered over the period of time is that people are not as fastidious as I am as far as knowing when cash comes in and when cash comes out. I do my cash flows daily. I look at my cash balances daily to make sure what's going on. It's there, so there are no surprises. I update my spreadsheets when something happens, but at least every 2 weeks I would go and want to know what's going on here. So there comes to the point then about if you're doing all those things and you're talking about the money, let's say you've got $300,000 and you go, but I just found another deal and I don't have $300,000. What do I do? And that's when you've got to find someone else who does have $300,000. And this is where people are looking for some magical solution. Unfortunately, doesn't exist. What should I offer them? So let's say you find this. So I found you, and I know you've got $300,000 because I know you're finishing a development soon, and I'm guessing you're going to have some cash on the hip, and you're looking to deploy it. So I go, I've got a deal for you, Justin. It's $300,000. You're going $300,000 a deal, man. I mean, because I just know I've got to do a deal. So we now have this discussion. But we're both at this. We're not really sure what to do because we don't know what the answer is. We just know we need to do something, and so we're worried about getting it wrong. So what's wrong in this case? Now, wrong. Let's assume it's the right thing to do is to do the deal because we're the right person. If it's not the right thing to do, then the wrong thing to do is actually do the deal. And that sounds like complete gobbledygook, but anyway.
That's another one of your good and in the game analogies.
Yeah. So if we say, if I need to do a deal, and I found this deal and it's a great little deal, and it's going to earn a bazillion little dollars or whatever else, and all I need is $300,000, and you've got that $300,000. Now, if we don't get together and form an arrangement of some sorts, then what's going to happen? Well, you've still got $300,000 in your back pocket that you can't do anything with, that you can't deploy, and I can't do anything with this deal because I can't actually write a check down to secure this deal. So I'm unhappy, you're presumably unhappy, and the deal, what happens? Well, someone else goes and picks it up. That person's probably me because I've solved the problem. So it doesn't matter what the deal is. We can split the profit 50-50, I can pay you an interest rate, there's a whole bunch of things that I can do around that. So then you talk about, is it equity, is it a loan, or is it a profit share, is it a fixed... It doesn't matter. It's just a detail. It's a fairly important detail, I grant you, but it's not a deal breaker about what actually happens next. If that $300,000 investment was going to make $100,000 profit overall in the deal, this would make it real simple numbers. Then how much of the $100,000 should you get as the guy who puts up the $300,000? How much should I get as the deal? Now it can be anywhere from 0 to 100, or 100 to 0, or 9. It doesn't really matter in that sense about how it actually works. Most people magically come to 50-50, but even that, you could argue, is flawed in some such way. What matters is that you actually have people who are prepared to back you and want to keep doing it. So the questions then come, when do you find these people? Now, by some law of the universe, the best time to find an investor is when you don't need an investor. I don't know why that's the case. One of the reasons I'm appearing on this show right now is because I don't need investors. So I've gone, the best time to speak on the show to talk about investors is when you don't need them. I don't know why that is. Who knows? Because something will happen tomorrow that I'll go, wow, I'm glad I did that. In the case, the best time for an investor to talk to a person potentially is when they know they haven't got money, but they know they've got money coming. If it makes sense. So what do you offer? Well, we can talk about. I'll talk about that at a different time, at a different junk, because we're going to run out of time real quick going through this meetings of what actually is the case. My experience, I'll share with you, is my thought process, and I've always believed that if I go to bed tonight wondering where am I going to get $1 million from, there is someone else going to bed tonight on a different side of the city who's going, where am I going to find a home for $1 million? And all I've got to do tomorrow is to find that person. Is how I've gone about it. As to the deal we strike, I trust that we'll actually figure that part out.
Okay, so it's just a limiting belief that you can't get access or you can't find that capital.
Yeah. Sorry, I wish there was a more answer, but yeah. And you'll have problems trying to find it because you might get the door slammed in your face a few times. You mean something you're going to do what with that? But there are people out there who'll go, yeah, okay, that doesn't sound too bad. So, for example, If you've got $300,000 in a deal and you've borrowed $700,000 from the bank and you've got a deal with $1 million and it's going to return you whatever the numbers are, you can also give the person who gives you the $300 for the second deal, you can also give them equity or security against the first deal if they so want, because that one's already in place. There's less risk in that deal. There's a few things that you practically can do, but some questions maybe will be, so if you do $300,000, so Justin, on what basis would you invest $300,000? And typically the only reason that you're not going to invest is you don't like me, which is this is a potential. The security on offer is not worthwhile, or the return on offer is not worthwhile, or you don't believe my management of that process is right.
Yeah, I always like to think of when you get rejected, it means you're one step closer to someone accepting or saying yes.
Oh, it brings back to my teenage years. I was the number one rejectee in the country, I reckon.
So you're a numbers guy.
Yeah, that's it,
Playing the odds.
That's it, They say them a chance.
All right, well, we're getting towards the back end of the discussion here. Thanks for your
Have I answered any of your questions, or have I just spoke?
No, we've gone through them all.
Excellent.
It's been good. Well, it's just a conversation. You should see where it leads to. So where can people find out more about you if they wanted to get in touch with you?
Sure. I've got a website, www.bradleypropertygroup.com.au, and my email address is really unoriginal, dave@bradleypropertygroup.com.au. If they want to get in contact with me, they can email me. Please don't ring me up because you might get me on a bad day, but send me an email in the first instance and ask me what it is that you actually want to do. Also, bear in mind that if you ask me the question, can you tell me everything you know with nothing in return, you may not get a reply or a reply that you're expecting, being the case. If you want to pitch an idea to me, then I'm a businessman. I'm all ears for doing stuff. You might even just want to get in contact with me because you've listened to this recording and gone, actually, I've taken something out of that. That was actually when you said whatever I said that we thought was quite innocuous, that actually might have struck a chord with someone. Let me know about it. I'd love to hear, some people's good feedback that you've actually got through to some people. I have this theory in life that you just say yes. It's one of my things I try and teach my kids, because when you say yes, good things happen. Now, having said that, my daughters are getting older, so I'm trying to teach them not to say yes as much, but anyway, you get the point. You don't know where things go. So one of my reasons for saying for this was because I got asked, and you don't know where it goes. So I'm hoping that it gets paid back, and someone says, when I get paid $1 or $2, it doesn't really matter. It's sort of irrelevant. That someone goes, I listen to what you had to say, and that struck a chord. Let me know about it. Send me an email and say, thank you, and it'll make me more likely to say yes again in the future.
Oh, I think that's a great idea for people to get in touch and let you know if they've got something out of it. I think that's would be great. All right. Well, we've covered a lot of ground, but is there one final tip that you've got for developers out there that are looking to take their business to the next level?
I think if a person is serious about taking their business to the next level, I think I'd encourage them to go and do it. If it's just lip service as a way of justifying some other thing that's not going right in their lives, then just be honest with yourself and say, I'm not looking to do that. If you're looking to do it, then I think the acronym of fear was false expectations appearing real. So what actually are you fearful of? Is it you're fearful of something that's actually going to go wrong, or is it just you're actually fearful of you might actually be right, you might actually have success in these things? If you take one thing from me that I've gone through in the past, is my greatest regrets have been not going hard enough. And so I would encourage you, especially if you're younger than me, even if you're older than me, is to go as hard as it is that you actually want to go. Is that this business is an amazing business, that you're actually going to achieve great things, far greater than I ever imagined were actually possible in a short space of time. That we could be having this discussion in 6-12 months' time, and it could be the shoe could be on the other foot because of what you've managed to learn in a 12-month period. That it's not an experience in years business. You can get experience really quickly, depending on some of the projects that you're in. So I'd encourage people just to give it a red hot go, because you never know where it ends up.
All right, well, that's an awesome place to finish. And Dave Bradley, thank you so much for being on the Property Developer Podcast.
My pleasure. Time seems to have flown. I hope people have got something out of it. I've actually got some things out of it myself as I reflect. So thank you for having me.
Oh, it's been great. Really great conversation, and I'm grateful for your time.
Pleasure.
See you later.
Bye-bye.
Okay, so that concludes the two-part conversation with property developer Dave Bradley. I really enjoyed speaking with Dave, and I hope you picked up some ideas and tips for taking your developing to the next level. It was awesome of Dave to share so much of his time with me, and I'd encourage you to reflect on some of the questions he posed. Here's the points from this week's conversation that most resonated with me. 1. Go as hard as you can. As Dave said, you only get one go around the board, so make the most of it. If you set yourself some pretty lofty goals, you might surprise yourself by actually achieving them. 2. Challenge your limiting beliefs. Most of what holds us back is our fears or limiting beliefs, but they are simply figments of our imagination. In developing for pretty much any situation, there's probably been someone who has already faced that challenge and overcome it. So if you are stuck thinking you can't deal with something, whether it's finding capital or sourcing investors, then you need to start asking yourself some different questions to help shift your mindset. 3. Be clear about what you want and go after it. Dave talked about being clear on what you want to achieve so that you know exactly what you are seeking, whether that be the size of deals, number of dwellings per project, or return on investment. If you can articulate what you want to achieve, then you can set yourself a plan of how to get there. Okay, that's almost it for this episode. Thanks again for listening into the show. As always, you can find me on Instagram at Property Developer Podcast for my property developer porn pics and other developing videos. And I'm occasionally on Facebook and Twitter. You can also find all the previous episodes of the show at propertydeveloperpodcast.com, where you can leave a comment on this or any other episode. Okay, so that's it for today. Until next time, go as hard as you can with your developing.
You've been listening to the Property Developer Podcast. Tune in next time for more tips, ideas and inspiration to take your developing to the next level. For more developing love, make sure to visit propertydeveloperpodcast.com.